Triss is resonated with me because I felt like when I was her age, maybe 17, 18, I was sort of going through the struggle of I was raised by two psychologist parents who are the most beautiful, selfless people I've ever met. And so compassion and empathy were two things that as a young child were ingrained into my system, which is such a lovely gift because I feel like those are two lessons that often don't get learned till later on in life. But as a teenager, I was like, my struggle was how do I balance being empathetic and being compassionate towards my peers and also living my life for myself and not basing my decisions on those around me and really live a life that I receive my happiness from my own experience rather than from people pleasing or whatnot. And so Trish sort of goes through that as well. You know, she was raised in a society where she had to be, or in a faction where she had to be selfless, and yet she joins this other faction which is all about sort of being selfish, and she has to find the balance between that. So I feel like I went through something similar, so that's how I relate to her, as well as just being a very strong, empowered woman. I feel very strong, and I live my life with a lot of integrity based on what I want for my life and who I am. And I think Trish is similar. As far as being different, Trish has really long hair and is blonde, and I don't anymore, so I guess that's a difference. I don't know. That was an awful joke. I don't know. I feel like we're actually very similar. I don't think there's a lot of differences between us. It was amazing. I mean, Ashley and I we're both sort of very kindred spirit, and Kate as well. So we sort of all connected on that level. But one thing that I thought was so neat about them is they're both so empowered. Like, they're both women. They are like a woman among women, and strong, and live their life with integrity. And also, one thing that I found so profound about both of them, but specifically with Kate, just because we talked about it so much, was that she loves the art of acting. She loves being on a movie set. She shows up early. She knows her lines. She shows up with questions to ask the director to enhance the movie, to bring about more awareness to certain situations. She's never in her trailer. She lives, whether it's hanging out with the actors or hanging out with the craft service dude or the transpo guys, she's just a citizen of the set. And as obvious as that may seem, I feel like a lot of actors sort of 2 hours after you get there are already complaining about being there, and you're like, well, then why don't you go do something else? Like, we're kind of lucky to have this life and do what we do. And Kate fully knows that, and so she brings this sense of enthusiasm and excitement to a film set, which is so special and seems so like it should be obvious and that everyone should do that, but that's just generally not the case. Yeah, no, it was so fun. I mean, have you guys talked to Miles? Are you going to talk? Okay, so he's like the funniest person you've ever met, right? And he's so great, and we sort of have an amazing sibling relationship. So when you go to do a new movie, you're surrounded by 300 new people in a new city, and you sort of get thrown into it. And with a movie like this, because it was a studio film, there's more than 300 people involved. And so to have somebody that I knew already sort of be that rock and that have that comfortability factor involved, it was really nice. And also, I have got his back, he's got my back, so that felt good, even though we didn't have to use that, which is lovely. But I knew that there was somebody there who supported me, and I supported him. And then it was fun to sort of have these scenes where we got to go against each other. Specifically, the fight scene was fun, because I remember actually sort of feeling hurt when he was like saying things that were rude during the scene, and I was like, dude, like, I'm your sister, you can't say stuff like that to me. And then afterwards, I went up to him and I was like, I hope we're okay, and I hope there's nothing, going on. And he's like, Shay, we're just acting. Come off it. Yeah, I mean, we definitely did get some black and blue bruises and have a few scars on our bodies still. But, Theo always says, he's like, if you do stunts or if you do a big action movie and you don't walk away a little banged up, then you're doing something wrong. So there's that. And yeah, the Ferris wheel was super fun. I mean, we got to climb the Navy Pier Ferris wheel. I don't think anyone's probably ever done that before. And we got to climb it during the full moon last year, and it was also a super moon. I don't know if anyone's into astrology, but that was really exciting for me. And so we got to watch the moon sort of cascade across the sky as we were climbing up and down this Ferris wheel. Oh, it's gorgeous. It was so beautiful. No, I am afraid of heights, but it's like that sort of fear. I love adrenaline, and so like that adrenaline, got me excited to keep going. And also we were hooked up. We literally could have fallen off the side of it and been fine. But yeah, it was fun. The 20-degree weather, that was the hardest part, I think. It was freezing. And then the sweaty palm thing, yes, the fight scenes are so intense. Specifically the one with Theo at the end of the movie. That dude, he boxes in real life and he's strong and not afraid to be strong. Um, and so you know, if I forgot to duck at the right time, or if I moved left instead of moving right, he would have decked me and I would have been out cold. And so that was a terrifying fight scene, where my palms were sweaty and my adrenaline was spiked the whole time, because we were moving so quickly, and we learned the fight. I learned the sequence that morning and we filmed it a few hours later. And so we really had to be on top of our toes, because he's intense and I wanted it. He makes it look amazing, but also at the same time, you're like, oh, wow, we're acting, but this is kind of real right now. Yeah. Just to clarify, I never thought Hollywood is the life I want to do. I thought acting is the life I want to do. And I feel like, yeah, I never, it's not even that. I started acting when I was 5, so I've been doing it for 17 years, which is crazy to think about. But it's always been something that was really fun for me, and a really, really fun, it was a passion project in a way, and it still is. And even though it's a career now, because it takes up all of my time, really, it's something that I enjoy doing. And the day that fun disappears, if that day ever comes, then I'm not going to do it anymore, because I feel like at the end of the day, as much as entertaining as movies are, when you're a part of them, in a way, it's this beautiful art form, and that's what it feels like for me. I'm not a painter, but I can express myself visually in a way that allows me to sort of artistically create.
Yeah, she was very refreshing actually to meet her, because inevitably you meet on the test and you don't know each other, and it's always slightly awkward because you're doing a kind of intimate scene with someone you've never even set your eyes upon. But she's really refreshing, and she's very open to really kind of collaborating as two people and making the scene as good as possible. And I found that when we were filming, what she was great intuitively at is that, when you're doing a big film like this, you may be in the midst of a big stunt sequence, or it's a green screen, or, and sometimes it's easy to get lost in that. And what she's great at, and what we managed to do a lot, is really ground the work, as pretentious as that sounds, but bring it back to the fact that the reason you're there is because you're trying to tell a story about two people, or several people, and I think she's so great at that, like very emotionally intuitive, and being able to bring a truth to something, even in the kind of craziest circumstances. Yeah, I think I had an immediate affinity with the character. To me, I think we share certain qualities, which I think you try to tend to use the things that you share with a character in everything you do, obviously, to make it as real as possible. For me, I love this person who you don't really know what he's thinking. He's the type of person who walks into a room and doesn't need to be the loudest voice, but you still feel his presence. Also, someone who doesn't speak too much, but you know that he's thinking all the time. That's one thing I really wanted to be. He's a very perceptive person, but he doesn't have to speak too much. And then on top of that, this kind of dangerous stillness that I felt he had when reading the book and the script. And those things I wanted to draw on. I love masculine characters who don't have to be kind of, shouting at someone's face and kind of wielding their masculinity in a way that's jamming it down someone's throat. I like this old, the Newman style of kind of, everything's here. So I hope that, came across, and that's one of my favorite parts of him as a character. And yeah, obviously I didn't want Shay to fuck with me. I'm a big fan of Neil. He's a very cool dude, but also he's a very smart person with very good taste. And I was very pleased when Shay and I saw the movie on Sunday. Inevitably, there's some trepidation when you see a film, because you give it up, you give it over, you finish with your job, and we were really pleased at what came about. And I think he managed to really keep a lot of integrity. There's no dumbing down, there's no kind of simplification, and there are some really strong themes in it about questions of determinism, questions of choice, identity. Things that people can really relate to, but also, things that are a bit deeper than the surface level. What we did, Shay, myself, and Neil would be always revisit the scenes the night before, a couple of nights before, when things weren't feeling right, and then do several several revisions of it to make sure we were all at a place where we felt that this was a genuinely good scene, and it also worked kind of not only in the context of honoring the material, but it was real and specific and and good, essentially. Another thing Neil did was really create a genuine world that you buy into, at least I hope, because I believe that. And I remember one thing he said was, there's a point in the book where someone dies, one of the kind of wannabe initiates, someone dies very early on, and we were asking, why he thought that shouldn't be there. And he said, look, what you need to do is you need to set up a construct, because people love to use the word dystopia, but it's not really a dystopia at the beginning. You need to set up a construct where this is a world that seems to be functioning. You need to buy it, because then inevitably when the downfall of the world comes, that means the stakes are higher and it means something. Because if you're in a world where it's like all shit and you don't empathize with it and you don't want to be there and you don't want to kind of be in these people's company, then you're not going to care. So I thought that was a really strong thing that he did, set up a world that is real. Then with the kind of the whole military coup that happens with the erudite faction, then it means something and the stakes change. Toughest stunt was, I guess, with Shay, I just wanted to practice as much as possible the kissing scene, but she wasn't really up for it. So I was like, listen, tonight, after dinner, we could just go over that scene again. No, I think, for me, the end scene, it's a kind of big climax where there's a fight, and then that leads into really the climax of the whole movie. And what is great about that, but what I really wanted to honor, was you have this really dynamic fight scene, and it's visceral and painful, and Shay gets punched in the face many times, which is kind of that's quite hardcore in many ways. But also in the midst of the scene is really a story about her getting through to him, through love, and that was kind of something that I really wanted to honor. And then genuinely the kissing scene, Shay and I, in a real way, we wanted that to be as good as possible, because it's the only time they get together. It's the only kind of really kind of, I don't know how to describe it, kissy, smooshy scene or whatever. And we wanted it to be good and to still kind of to fulfill the kind of things that it needed to fulfill, but also be real and not kind of ebb on the side of lots of cheese. So yeah, we actually shot that a second time, because the first time it didn't feel quite right, and we really wanted to honor it in the way that it's earned. And I think hopefully it's earned, because there's not lots of batting eyelids and kind of fawning towards each other in the whole film. It's quite a functional, tough, kind of intricate, complex relationship. So when eventually they kiss, I hope that it's earned, and it's not just, oh, okay, they've got to get it on, here it is, kind of thing. Yeah, no, I didn't really know that, to be honest, and I'd heard she was obviously happy with the test, but you kind of, in a way, a constant, I guess, pessimist. So you don't believe it until someone slaps you around the face with it. So I kind of, when I got to know her more, then it became apparent. But she was really great, actually, because she would be on set and involved, but she was happy to let Neil and us just kind of run with it, because she knew that essentially it's a very different medium, obviously, that bringing this book to film. So she kind of let us do our thing, and I consciously didn't want to ask questions to her. I didn't want to say, what do you think X and Y blah, blah, about 4, because you have to be, when you're bringing, when you're choosing to play a character that's already a book, especially when it already has a big fan base. I think it's really important to be 100% strong in your intentions with the character, and you can't listen to too much outside kind of stimulus, because otherwise it waters down your own instincts. Is it a hopeful message? I'm not 100% sure in a way. I think no, in many respects. I think analyzing the concept, you have to, although you set up a world that is seemingly working, inherently the concept of a faction system is a hard one to swallow, because we all know that people are motivated by varying different things. Everyone is multifaceted. But at the same time, I think what is interesting about the film and maybe what people relate to and why people are interested in these films set in the future is perhaps a young generation growing up in a world where there's always rhetoric about the fact that resources are depleting, the fact that the population is going to be 9, 10, 11 billion 2050, the fact that there are all these things playing into their subconscious, which means they are interested and questioning how their future, how their children, how their grandchildren will, exist. And I think that's kind of an interesting concept. I think the hopeful message is that in this society, which you think is functioning, you realize is completely inadequate, and you have these factionalists who are just kind of shuffled to the side, and there's not much. In reality, these people aren't respected in a good way. The hopeful message is that eventually they break free of those bonds and want to find equality.